Don't get it twisted. He like boy booty too. He like boy pickles too. Yeah. Yeah, he likes bills and deals. We saw that glove for butts and sucks. Yeah, we're not gonna play dumb. My glasses are off. Or on, whichever way you can see better. But Donald Trump and his whole family forgot that they are immigrants. How dare you forget? How dare you forget? That's just like you talking about law and order. How dare you forget you're a criminal? How dare you forget that you're a predator? Why you calling Epstein disgustable? And you his best friend, and y'all doing this shit together. You introduced his sick fetish to trafficking. He acknowledged that he was sick, but he said you are way more disgusting than him. Probably because he knows that you made that man perform a removal of a baby on his niece, and y'all threw that baby in that lake. Maybe that's why he's saying that you are more disgusting than him. He knows shit that what we wasn't supposed to know. You understand? But you forget, and you call somebody disgusting because you're Lake Michigan. Absolutely. Let's go.
Faces. No donors, no handlers, no permission slips. We show up when power embarrasses. Loud that it accidentally tells the truth about itself.
Oh, well, hold on. Let me back up a little bit. Hit the like button.
Last name starts talking so fast and so loud. When privilege forgets, it is privilege. And when a famous last name starts talking so fast and so loud, self in public, when privilege forgets, it is privilege.
Yeah,
and when
forgot.
a famous last name starts talking so fast and so loud that it accidentally tells the truth about itself. This weekend was called Stupid Saturday for a reason, because the story centers on Donald Trump Jr., the guy who seems to speed up when he gets excited on camera, the guy who talks like he is trying to outrun his own point. The tone is almost like a running joke, like a scene out of a movie, and the reference is made bluntly. Remember Forrest Gump, the line about stupid is as stupid does? That is the lens the original narration uses, because Don Jr. keeps doing the same thing again and again. He gets hyped, he says something reckless, and then he somehow does not realize he is describing himself. The clearest example is the nepotism spiral. Don Jr. goes on Hannity on Fox News, and he starts taking shots at Hunter Biden.
Donald Trump Jr. quoting Hunter Biden, acknowledging that things came his way because of his father. Your response?
God bless Trump Jr. Just bless his little heart. It's just indescribably stupid.
Basically repeating the familiar attack line, that Hunter got opportunities because of his father. The original narration emphasizes the absurdity of it by repeating his name like a punchline. Donald Trump Jr., the person whose entire public identity is built on being Donald Trump's son, is criticizing someone else for benefiting from their father. The response in the original clip is a straight reality check.
You're the father, and your son's entire career is dependent on that. They own you, Sean. That's what it is.
Then Paul Begala shows up in the original material and reacts to the same cell phone happening yet again, calling it
That's what it is.
Then Paul Begala shows up in
father, and your son's entire career is dependent on that. They own you, Sean. That's what it is. Career is dependent on that. They own you, Sean. That's what it is.
Then
father, and your son's entire career is dependent on that. They own you, Sean. That's
straight reality check.
You're the father, and your son's entire career is dependent on that. They own you, Sean. That's what it is.
Then Paul Begala shows up in the original material and reacts to the same cell phone happening yet again, calling it indescribably stupid, the kind of stupidity you cannot even fully explain, because it is just sitting there in the open. That is not a side joke. That is the core of the analysis, because it explains the bigger pattern. Don Jr. speaks with the confidence of someone protected by a name. He can throw accusations, make grand claims, posture as an authority, and he does not have to worry about the consequences the way normal people do. The original narration keeps circling back to how he never seems to grasp how elitist and insulated he is because he can go on these rants as if he is the tough guy in charge, when in reality he is operating inside a very padded bubble. You can hear that bubble in the way he talks after debates and media hits. The original content includes a clip where Don Jr. is on Fox News after the debate, and he is extremely pumped about his dad's performance. He launches into a familiar script about Russian disinformation.
The media runs right away. It's Russian.
You can hear that bubble in the way he talks after debates and media hits. The original content includes a clip where Don Jr. is on Fox News after the debate, and he is extremely pumped about his dad's performance. He launches into a familiar script about Russian disinformation.
The media runs right away. It's Russian disinformation. There's literally zero evidence that it's Russian disinformation. The director of national intelligence said it. And by the way, more importantly,
that there is literally zero evidence that it is Russian disinformation. He claims the director of national intelligence said it, and that more importantly, the FBI said it. Then he adds a twist that reveals how opportunistic the whole performance is. He says,
the FBI said it, and I don't say that because I think the FBI has more credibility.
He says it because it is pretty clear in his view that the FBI has done whatever it could to hurt Donald Trump.
I say that because it's pretty clear that the FBI has done whatever they possibly could to hurt Donald Trump. So if they're even coming out and saying this, meaning the upper levels of the FBI, the door kickers love us, not so much the bureaucrats at the top.
So if even they are saying it, he treats that as proof. Then he does the weird splitting thing, where he tries to separate the FBI into the door kickers, who he claims love them, and the bureaucrats at the top who do not. It is a cartoon of law enforcement used as a political prop. It is not about truth. It is about narrative control and picking which part of an institution he wants to praise today, and which part he wants to attack tomorrow. And then the elitism becomes performance art. It is not about truth. It is about narrative control and picking which part of an institution he wants to praise today and which part he wants to attack tomorrow. And then the elitism becomes performance art. There is a rant in the original content where he mocks the idea that Trump said something nice about Putin, Kim, Xi.
Can't believe Trump said something nice about Putin, Kim, Xi, anyone. He must love them.
Kim,
He's
Kim,
folding
Kim.
to them.
And then he claims critics say Trump must love them or be folding. Don Jr. then shouts that if it were him in charge,
If it was me in charge, I'd tell them to go screw themselves.
Really pumped.
This is some nerd in his mom's basement who's never dealt with anything, never actually had any power, never understood those people because he's never been in the same room as them.
he would tell them to go screw themselves. That is the voice of someone who has never had to sit at a real table with real consequences. He is role-playing power because he has never had to carry the weight of it. The original content calls out how he frames opponents as basement nerds who have never dealt with anything, never had any power, never understood those people because they have never been in the same room as them. He speaks like he is the one who has been in the room, like he has lived the stakes, like he has earned his way into seriousness. But the entire point is that he has not. He is a protected figure performing toughness for the camera. That rant energy is what leads directly into the weekend comment that set off the reaction overseas. The breaking story in the original narration says Don Jr. has reportedly been privately fuming over a college friend who has destructive information about him. That detail
There we
matters
go.
because it frames his emotional state as already agitated, already defensive, already feeling cornered. And then in that state, he goes on social media and makes a comment that detonates. He is reacting to an article about animal welfare standards tightening, specifically a story about banning boiling lobsters alive. Instead of staying on the topic, he takes the opportunity to inject an inflammatory claim about migrants. He says he really wishes they had banned roving gangs of migrant rapists and groomers, adding that apparently their priorities are elsewhere. That
He
is the
said,
quote.
what? What about apists and groomers? What? He talking about him and his daddy, right?
Name about migrants. He says he really wishes they had banned roving gangs of migrant
About
rapists and
migrants?
groomers.
He
Takes
talking
the
about his
opportunity
daddy?
to inject an inflammatory claim about article about animal welfare standards tightening, specifically a story about banning boiling lobsters alive. Instead of staying on the topic, he takes the opportunity to inject an inflammatory claim about migrants. He says he really wishes they had banned roving gangs of migrant rapists and groomers, adding that apparently their priorities are elsewhere. That is the quote as presented in the original content, and it is not subtle. It is a smear. It is fear-mongering. It It is the Trump world habit of
that's
turning
his
any
daddy.
subject into a vehicle for demonizing
Are you telling on your
outsiders.
daddy on the
And this is where the UK crowd reacts.
He's an immigrant?
It is the Trump world habit of turning any subject into a vehicle for demonizing outsiders. And this is where the UK...
This is what I'm talking about. He forgot he was an outsider. He forgot.
...is fear-mongering. It is the Trump world habit of turning any subject into a vehicle for demonizing outsiders. And this is where the UK crowd reacts, part becomes real, and roving gangs of migrant rapists and groomers, adding that apparently their priorities are elsewhere. That is the quote as presented in the original content, and it is not subtle. It is elsewhere. That is the quote as presented in and roving gangs of migrant rapists and groomers, adding that apparently their priorities are elsewhere. That is the quote as presented in the original content, and it is not subtle. It is a smear. It is fear-mongering. It is the Trump world habit of turning any subject into a vehicle for demonizing outsiders. And this is where the UK crowd reacts, part becomes real. The original content lists the reactions one by one, and they are not polite. Edward Luce, associate editor at the Financial Times, responds by calling Don Jr. an imbecile and an embarrassment to America. That is a direct hit.
This robotic puppy is so lifelike, it actually called my neighbour, who's a veterinarian.
That's deep.
I've been a grandmother for 15 years.
No careful phrasing, no soft diplomacy, just blunt condemnation. Then Reed Galen, described in the original narration as a former campaign manager for Senator John McCain and a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, responds with a line that is meant to sting because it points to the source of the rot. He says the call is coming from inside the house, and he tags Don Jr. That is the accusation in one sentence. The problem is not outsiders attacking America. The problem is the president's son projecting ignorance from inside the American power structure itself. Then a UK comedian, Hal Cruttenden, responds in a way that widens the frame beyond one insult and turns it into an alliance question. He says any opportunity is taken to spread lies about their country by this Trump regime. He goes further and says the USA is no longer their friend or their ally. He adds that the president, who changed that relationship, was the one cheered into office by Reform Party and GB News, and he ends with shame on anyone associated with them. That is not just a clapback. That is a statement about deteriorating trust and public disgust, and it lands precisely because it is coming from outside the American bubble, where the Trump brand is not treated as normal. Then Stephen Methvin adds another layer by flipping the moral lecture back onto Don Jr. He says instead of fake lecturing the UK, this US Nepo baby in chief should worry about his own country, describing American streets in major cities, the smell of untreated suffering, and people lying on the street dying because they cannot afford basic health care. Whether someone agrees with every part of that statement or not, it is the same theme. Stop posturing abroad when your own country is in crisis, and stop doing it from a position of inherited privilege. This is why the embarrassment is bigger than Don Jr.'s comment. The original narration connects it back to Trump's constant claim that America was not respected and that he would restore respect. But respect is not something you declare. Respect is what people give you when you speak and act like adults. When the president's son uses a UK animal welfare story as an excuse to smear migrants with extreme accusations, the result is not respect. The result is that a visible slice of the UK discourse publicly mocks him and condemns him, and then ties that disgust to the broader Trump political project. And that leads to the central conclusion of the original narration. Don Sr. and Don Jr. are not restoring America's status. They are actively damaging it.
Let me hear it.
That the U.S. is now less respected.
What about
and then
Thorn?
ties that disgust to the broader Trump political project. And that leads to the central conclusion of the original narration. Don Sr. and Don Jr. are not restoring America's status. They are actively damaging it. The claim is that the U.S. is now less respected because of them, and that the relationship with the UK is being undermined by the stupidity of the Trump brand, not by some outside propaganda campaign. The narrator frames it as losing a number one ally because of the stupid mouth of the father and the stupid mouth of the son. That is the emotional language of the original content, and the point underneath it is serious. Alliances are not just paperwork. Alliances are also public trust. When public figures keep insulting, lying, and scapegoating, the public on the other side notices. So what is the deeper analysis? Don Jr.'s outburst is not random. It is the natural output of a system that keeps rewarding provocation over discipline, a system that confuses access with ability, a system that gives a family member a platform and treats him like a statesman when he's really just a privileged amplifier of whatever outrage gets attention today. The nepotism hypocrisy matters because it reveals how hollow the moral framing is. When Don Jr. attacks someone for benefiting from their father, he is not defending ethics. He is using ethics language as a weapon. That is why it backfires so hard, because the public can see the inheritance in his name before he even finishes his sentence. And the UK reaction matters because it shows what happens when the Trump bubble meets an audience that does not feel obligated to play along. Outside the bubble, Don Jr.'s posturing is not read as strong. It is read as embarrassing. It is read as ignorant. It is read as a warning sign about what kind of politics the Trump family represents. The call is coming from inside the House, and people outside America are saying it out loud. We are anonymous, and the point is not to be entertained by stupidity. The point is to recognize how quickly inherited power can poison public discourse, and how easily a protected heir can punch down at migrants and call it priorities, while other countries look on and decide they cannot take America's.
I remember the movie Damien Omen. I think it was a 1 and 2. I don't know what the significance of the Thornton is until, however, my AI brings it up as an organization up to no good. Well, but the Omen, he had that mark. He was a child of the devil. Yeah, I remember a little rich kid, a little badass. I remember. Hold on. Yeah, I'm finna have to get ready to go, but over here, I showed y'all where somebody said that he was spotted in Israel, talking about Epstein, and then the other day I got it over here. Somebody spotted him in Greece. So let me get over here before I go. Hold on, let me pull up my tea. I got some good stuff and some funny stuff. Some interesting stuff. You know, these people play too much. They be playing straight up in your face.
In his town in Greece.
Hold on.
A person said they saw Jeffrey Epstein in his town in Greece. This is what the post said. I live in Agrilos and work near the docks. During my lunch break, me and my colleagues and my friends who would work nearby sit by the docks. Nothing ever happens here. It is a very small town, but in the last year we've noticed a few times a fancy boat at the docks. We talk about it and joke about what it could be doing here. But a month ago, an ordinary day, we saw people near the boat for the first time. It was a black man and two women wearing tuxedos. This piqued our interest because it was very strange. So me and my friend wanted to talk to them. But when we started walking towards that area of the dock, we saw him, Jeffrey Epstein, the man we saw so often on the news. He had a big beard, but he was wearing a coronavirus mask on his chin. And he was walking with a tall man in a vest that people used on safari. Me and my friend recognized him and we were scared, so we stopped and pretended not to recognize him and left. I've been talking about this a lot with my family and friends over the last month, and after seeing pictures of him, I 100% believed it was him. My uncle enjoys fishing and said he once saw this boat heading toward the island of Stamfani. This is the connection that'll blow your mind right here, guys.
Yeah, I hear that.
Today, it is reported that
2 days ago,
Epstein had a fake Austrian passport under the name Marius Ortolini that claimed he lived in Saudi Arabia. So that passport was good to enter through Greece. Town in Greece.
Sorry.
This is what the post said. I live in Agrilos and work near the docks. During my lunch break, me and my colleagues and my friends who would work nearby sit by the docks. Nothing ever happens here. It is a very small town, but in the last year we've noticed a few times a fancy boat at the docks. We talk about it and joke about what it could be doing here. But a month ago, an ordinary day, we saw people near the boat for the first time. It was a black man and two
Yeah, I don't know if.
This piqued our interest because it was very
Yeah,
strange.
they would
So me
have
and
to
my
catch a
friend
picture without
wanted to
them
talk to
knowing
him.
it.
But when we started walking towards that area of the dock, we saw him, Jeffrey Epstein, the man we saw so often on the news. He had a big beard, but he was wearing a coronavirus
Let me
mask
see
on
if
his
I can
chin,
go back
and he
and
was
see.
walking with a tall
Let me
man
check,
in a vest
Brian.
that people used on safari. Me and my friend recognized him, and we were scared, so we stopped and pretended not to recognize him and left.
Yeah,
I've
they
been
got
talking about
scared.
this a lot with my family and friends over the last month, and after seeing pictures of him, I 100% believe.
Got scared. Let me see what this one said. I don't remember. Oh yeah, they hiding this from us. Let's go.
Economic news for the United States of America again, as according to the Washington Post, bankruptcies in the manufacturing sector soar to the highest levels since the Great Recession.
They don't want us to know these numbers.
And 2009. And the reason why is directly correlated to a lot of economic uncertainty. In addition, it's also directly as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs, which he has imposed on numerous countries, hurting businesses here in the United States of America, forcing many construction and manufacturing businesses to declare bankruptcy in 2025. And this number is only set to continue to rise heading into 2026, assuming these tariffs are upheld by the Supreme Court, which it's anyone's guess what happens. But the economic numbers in the United States are as bad as they were back during the Great Recession right now when it comes to bankruptcies and really other economic factors. I'll provide you more updates as we get more information, so spread the word, follow along for all the news you need to know about. We have some news right now, horrible economic news for the United States of America again, as according to the Washington Post, bankruptcies in the manufacturing sector soar to the highest levels since the Great Recession between 2007 and 2009. And the reason why is directly correlated to a lot of economic uncertainty. In addition, it's also directly as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs, which he has imposed on numerous countries, hurting businesses here in the United States of America, forcing many construction and manufacturing businesses to declare bankruptcy in 2025. And this number is only set to continue to rise heading into 2026, assuming these tariffs are upheld by the Supreme Court, which it's anyone's guess what happens. But the economic numbers in the United States are as bad as they were back during the Great Recession right now when it comes to bankruptcies